People think that you need a lot of free time or a lot of money to travel around the world. But I managed to travel to 11 countries, 25 cities in 6 months. Let me tell you how. I didn't plan this as a big goal to accomplish. A lot of the trips were spontaneous and usually just weekend getaways. I traveled with my girlfriend to almost all of these destinations, mostly by car, with a few flights here and there. Firstly, we started traveling locally and visited a lot of historical places in the country we live in, Serbia. We explored many cities and cultural sites, and I'd say the highlights were Golubac's Fortress and Viminacium. After that, for Valentine's Day, we went to Romania, to Timisoara. When we arrived, we heard about Corvin Castle, which is about a 2-hour drive away, and we decided to go explore it. And that turned out to be one of the best decisions of the entire year. The castle looks like something straight out of a fairy tale, and it's also known for the story that Dracula was imprisoned there. That trip included one overnight stay in Timisoara. We explored the city on the first day, and on the second we visited the castle, before heading back home. After that amazing trip, just 2 weeks later, it was our anniversary, and we went to Budapest, Hungary. We stayed for 2 nights exploring the city's fascinating architecture, from Vaidahuniad Castle to Fisherman's Bastion and Buda Castle. We also went on a hot air balloon ride, which was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and visited a shopping mall with an aquarium. On the last day, before heading home, we stopped in a small town called St. Andre, which left us speechless with how calm and beautiful it was. It was almost empty, and people told us that's because it wasn't the weekend. At the beginning of April, I surprised my dad for his 60th birthday with a trip to Thessaloniki, Greece, to watch one of the biggest derbies in the world, PAOK against Olympiacos. It was a trip with my dad, my friend and me. We explored a very lively and crowded city, full of history, and it reminded me a lot of Athens. We also visited the Zejtinlik cemetery, which holds a lot of meaning for Serbian people because of the World War I. The derby itself was an amazing experience, similar to the Partizan games we regularly attend. PAOK won 2-1, and the atmosphere was exactly what we expected. We stayed for 2 nights, but honestly it wasn't enough to fully enjoy the gyros and the feeling of being near the sea. Later that month, my girlfriend and I went on the biggest car trip so far. We hit the road early in the morning to avoid traffic at the border, and our first stop was Bijeljina in Bosnia, where we grabbed some burek and walked around the city center before continuing to Trist, Italy. I fell in love with Trist. It feels similar to other Italian cities, but without the overwhelming crowds. The weather was great, the people were friendly, and of course, the gelato was amazing. We stayed there for 2 nights, and then, early in the morning, we headed to Ljubljana, Slovenia. That same day we explored the city, which is probably the cleanest place I've ever visited. In the evening, there were a lot of people outside, talking, dancing, just enjoying the atmosphere. It was really nice to see. The next morning we went to Bled, to visit the castle and the lake. After exploring the castle and enjoying the views, we tried to reach the lake. But it was so crowded that we couldn't find parking for over an hour. So we decided to continue our trip. On the way back, we stopped in a small town called Škofja Loka, which felt like a fairy tale medieval place. Definitely a must visit. After that we returned to Ljubljana for dinner, and then drove to Zagreb, Croatia, where we stayed overnight before heading back home. In the morning we had breakfast in city center and walked around, seeing the main attractions. It didn't take long, around 4 hours to be exact, before we got back in the car and drove home to Belgrade. Our next trip was to Bulgaria. We stayed for 2 nights in Sofia and explored it quite quickly. It was summer and very hot, and the city felt a bit empty, probably because many people were on vacation. Sofia was still great. The food, the people, everything. The night before heading home, we realized that Plovdiv is considered a more historic and touristic city than Sofia. So we decided, without planning, to book one night there. The next morning we arrived in a city that completely surprised us. Plovdiv made a much stronger impression than Sofia, with its Roman theater and preserved historical sites throughout the whole city. We also experienced one of the most beautiful sunsets from the old town. At the beginning of September we visited Sombor, Nikola Jokic's hometown. It's a small, beautiful city with a very friendly people and amazing food. We stayed for one night and the next morning we drove to Szeged, Hungary. Szeged is quite popular among Serbian tourists, especially for shopping, but as a city itself it has beautiful architecture similar to Budapest, and it's perfect for a one-day trip. After exploring the city, we drove back home that same night, since we hadn't booked a hotel and needed to get back to work. Later that month we traveled by plane, for the first time that year, since all previous trips were by car. We flew with Wizz Air from Belgrade to a very unique airport that connects three countries: France, Germany and Switzerland. When you arrive, you can choose which country to enter. We chose to stay in Mulhouse, France, which was about an hour away, combined by bus and train. We stayed there for 5 nights. On the first day we explored Mulhouse, since we arrived early in the morning and had a full day. It's a smaller city, and to me it felt more German than French. The next day we took a train to Colmar, and wow, that city feels like a real-life fairy tale. Beautiful architecture, amazing colors, great food, and for the first time I even tried a tourist train ride. I usually prefer walking, but this experience changed my mind, especially because you can learn a lot while listening through headphones. The following day we visited Strasbourg, a much larger city with one of the most impressive cathedrals I've ever seen. It even has an astronomical clock, similar to the famous one in Prague. Both cities were crowded, mostly with German tourists visiting for the weekend. I would definitely love to return to Strasbourg because one day simply wasn't enough. On the 4th day we visited Basel, Switzerland. We went early in the morning, alongside many people commuting to work. As expected, Switzerland is expensive, especially if you want to eat out or grab a coffee. But supermarket prices weren't that different from France. Basel is more industrial and doesn't really have the classic Swiss nature, but the architecture is still beautiful and influenced by both France and Germany. There was also an option to visit Freiburg, but we didn't have enough time. That's something we'll definitely do next time, because we really love the region, the people, the food and the vibe. And when you add it all up, I spent 27 days traveling across 11 countries and 25 cities in a span of 6 months. If you have any questions about the places or travel, feel free to leave a comment. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And join me on the goal of visiting at least 5 new countries this year.